Welcome back to the All Sports Betting Podcast with me, Steve Wiss, and Kevin Harper. We've been out of action for the last 2 days, basically because I've been ill. A throat problem, which, so if I sound a bit coarse in this next few editions, then please bear with me. But we missed a couple of matches. Have you been tearing up the place with winners, Kev?
Had a good day in the West Indies Bangladesh game, Steve. A couple of 3 winners in that. Bangladesh winning to enhance the outrights too. Really enjoyed that. Cracking game of cricket, one of the best run chases you'll ever see. Didn't really bet much in the England-Afghanistan game. Tough game. Not helped by the fact that the match winner wasn't even due to be playing due to an injury. So good luck to anyone who found some winners in that game. But that one wasn't really for me. This one is, though, that we're about to preview.
Yes, I got on the sixes for that game down at Taunton. I said all week I was going to get on it. It's a shame we didn't get to preview that game because it would have been exciting, and it was an exciting match. But we're back for New Zealand against South Africa at Edgbaston. So a new venue for this tournament. First time we're going to see Edgbaston in action, but it's a very, very famous stadium. What can you tell us about the dynamics of Edgbaston?
Like many grounds in England, Steve, it's probably shortened an awful lot since that monstrosity of a stand or new pavilion went up down one side. Very much more accessible boundaries-wise these days, which is why it hosts T20 Finals Day, isn't it? Usually a fantastic batting wicket, as evidenced by the fact that it never really breaks up over the 120 overs that it stages Finals Day at. I think most people have it in their minds that it was a dust bowl in the final of the 2013 Champions Trophy, wasn't it? But you can eradicate that. That's not going to happen over the course of this tournament, particularly with the Birmingham rain certainly being in plentiful supply in recent times. But yeah, pretty fast outfield. Once again, it's another ground where you need to not take any notice of championship form that's been here. I've seen a few mentions that Jeetan Patel took 6 for 16 here in the championship a few weeks ago. You've got to think and remember the Warwickshire are fighting relegation in the championship, so they're not going to be producing roads that are no good to them. They're going to be producing result wickets. But as we mentioned when we previewed games at Taunton, red ball wickets and white ball wickets are 2 completely different commodities, and there'll be no issues with the pitch here. It should be a good pitch, even allowing for the fact it's likely to have been undercover for a while.
Yeah, there has been plenty of rain in the Midlands recently, for sure. And it is a ground that has a history of problems with the outfield. I think people associate with the Edgbaston, so it's probably not going to be the quickest out there. But expecting a good pitch. But a lot of our bets suggest that we're not expecting a lot of runs here in this particular match. More on that in a minute. But first to the matchup, New Zealand v South Africa. New Zealand are favourites, about 1.7, around the 1.70 mark. You can get a little bit more on them. South Africa are the underdogs, but they're coming into this match on the back of a very convincing win against Afghanistan, in which they clearly got their mojo back massively, South Africa. So, is that the question I'm going to set to you now is, are South Africa back as contenders in this World Cup?
No, they're not. No, convincing by scoreline states, but there was anything but convincing. Watching the run chase, bearing in mind that they've lost 3 games, 4 games, whatever it is, and their run rate's shocking. I mean, it was like pulling teeth watching that run chase. Really, really tepid stuff, actually. I mean, just compare that to what England did to the same bowling attack, if arguably a better bowling attack with Majid back in it on Tuesday. And, it really is chalk and cheese. They're not back, South Africa, but ironically, I wouldn't be taking New Zealand in this game. I have a funny feeling South Africa might turn up and play the role of party pooper here. I mean, it's a massive thing, first and foremost, for South Africa that the game's here and not down the road at Worcester, because they were playing water polo if it's down the road at Worcester. Plenty of tweets going around over the weekend. The ground's under water again, isn't it? They've had to move a championship game, which just highlights how much rain has been in the area, and will come into play when we discuss our bets.
I was listening to the verdict tonight on Sky Sports, Bob Willis and that, and he was on about some. I didn't watch it the other night when apparently Sean Pollock was on, and Pollock was apparently claiming that New Zealand haven't really beaten anyone in this tournament yet. Nothing to fear at all for South Africa, and he's expecting them to basically turn up and deliver the goods, and he was surprised they were underdogs for this game. In terms of the betting odds, New Zealand are the rightful favourites, though, aren't
they? Yeah, probably, just based on the records in the tournament so far, or more in particular, South Africa's poor record in the tournament so far. But whoever said that about New Zealand is absolutely right. They've only beaten Sri Lanka, Afghanistan and Bangladesh, and they made a heavy weather of beating Bangladesh, didn't they? That's not necessarily the worst form guide, having seen what Bangladesh did to the West Indies, but even so, they weren't at their fluent best in that game, and there were times in that Afghanistan game where they looked anything but good. So yeah, we're going to find out an awful lot more about New Zealand now. They've had the washed out game with India, which is a right touch for them. But 4 of their last 5 are genuine tough articles, aren't they? So assignments, sorry. So yeah, we're going to find out an awful lot about them. If South Africa are going to launch a late bid for the semi-finals, it has to start here, and they've probably not got the worst opponents to go at. You see it often in sport, don't you, that when a team gets into its comfort zone without being tested, when the first test finally comes along, they kind of struggle. I mean, you're a big sort of cover of French football, aren't you? And you see that with PSG all the time. Not tested in domestic football, go to Europe, finally find someone half decent, get beaten. You know, there's got to be a fear that New Zealand could do that here. I don't think they're any better than South Africa, but there's no doubt that they've performed better than South Africa thus far.
I mean, the way I see it is South Africa bowling department is quite good at the moment and is performing reasonably well. The batting department is not producing the goods at all, and fielding is a bit haphazard. I think with New Zealand, the fielding, we just talked about this the other night, the fielding's been excellent, the bowling's been good against, you know, mediocre, poor opponents. The batting, New Zealand batting, for me, there's no real answer at the moment because, again, of who they're faced at times. But how do you think their batting lineup's going to get on against this South African attack?
Yeah, I'm not convinced it's going to fare particularly well, Steve. Like a few teams in the tournament, they're heavily reliant on their top 4. Kane Williamson's obviously the class act in this side, and although he scored runs much in the sort of way that Dave Warner did at the early stages of the tournament, he hasn't scored them with the fluency and the class that you kind of come to expect from him. Guptill and Munro, they only play one way, don't they? Whether they can do that against Rabada, Hendricks, Lungi and Ngidi, who's finally fit again to return, et al. Remains to be seen. And as ever with New Zealand, they're going to be tested with spin, aren't they? Imran Tahir's got his mojo back after a good spell against Afghanistan. May even bring Tabraiz Shamsi back in if the pitch looks dry enough. Probably don't see that myself, but even so, Imran Tahir's going to test them. So yeah, I wouldn't be confident of New Zealand going too well with the bat, and I certainly wouldn't want to be on them and they have to chase a reasonable total.
Right, well, we've got some selections for you for this game, listeners, and there's 3 unders to get tucked in. Unders, I might add, which is the first one is the under 550.5 runs line at Bet365. You're not expecting a high-scoring spectacle, Kev?
Just purely because both batting lineups don't really convince me, Steve, and both bowling attacks do. I am slightly concerned that the toss will be overplayed. You've got to think that whoever wins the toss will bowl because the pitch is probably going to look a bit green, etc., etc. But how many times have we seen that in this tournament so far? That teams put another team in because they think that the pitch is green and going to do all sorts. It does nothing, and the opposition team rack up 300. I don't see 300s being scored here, though. I mean, it's hard to see wickets not falling early doors in each innings. And Ngidi and Rabada, genuine wicket takers. Bolt and Henry, the same. Both sides have got good wicket-taking options during the middle overs. Imran Tahir, as I've just mentioned, for South Africa. Obviously, Lockie Ferguson's having a wonderful tournament for New Zealand. And both batting lineups really stop after 4 or 5 batsmen, don't they? I mean, you look at the number 6s. At best, you can have JP Duminy for South Africa. And at best for New Zealand, you've got Jimmy Neesham. So if either of them are in 100 for 4 or whatever, you can't really see either of them scoring 60 or 70. It's going to propel a total beyond 275. which we would need in order to have any chance of under 550 runs being scored.
Yeah.
On a normal sort of Edgbaston day, you'd probably take the over here, but not with these two batting lineups. I'm not saying I'm going to take every game and under on this ground. I've got to be honest, I've not looked at all the fixtures here, but there'll be plenty of runs scored here as the tournament goes on. I just don't think, well, I don't see these two batting lineups doing it against these two bowling attacks. And even if one does, let's say one does score 300, 320, the other one's still got to score 230. And, we've seen an awful lot of one-sided games in this competition, haven't we? So, there's no guarantees that even if one team does bat really, really well, that the other one is going to follow suit, because neither of them are batting great. So it would be something of a, well, you'd have to take it on chance that both are going to bat well here. I just don't see it.
Yeah, 272 by my reckoning, we can celebrate if no more than 272 scored in the first innings. Although I'm with you in a way, even if someone did get 300 in that first innings, it might not be the worst thing necessarily, because there's a lot of pressure down to chase that against a good bowling attack, isn't it? So I'm also going to add an under here, which links with runs under 48.5 fours. And it's similar to my reasoning from last week, England in the match at the Rose Bowl. There's been a lot of rain around. The outfield's going to be slow. I think it's even in the morning, there's a bit of drizzle forecast. So that'll just add a little bit more of a layer to it. And I can guarantee there'll be quite a few that look like being 4 and somehow aren't 4. So 48.5 seems quite high, again, similar reasons. The batting attacks are not really firing. I have looked into the history of this ground. There's quite a few games with an alarming number of 4s in them, I must admit. But I think you've got to factor in the conditions there, who's playing in these games, and you've got to focus on the here and now on Wednesday, the 19th of June. And we've got a case of New Zealand against South Africa on a wet, short of outfield, 2 out of form. Well, 2 batting attacks we don't expect are going to go that well. I just don't see a run fest either. And bound in terms of 4s, 48.5 does seem a little bit high to me. That's 888 sport.
Yeah, all fair enough. I mean, you would have thought first game of the tournament going to be somewhere near the middle of the square as well. I mean, if you do look at markets like this and you look into Warwickshire games, then be aware that their T20 games, they have so many international and big days here at Edgbaston that they have to play their T20 games on the sort of extremities of the square, because there's just aren't enough pitches for the amount of cricket that's played here per year. So don't let Warwickshire games sway you in any way. As I said, this will be a high scoring ground throughout this tournament, just not with these two batting lineups.
Probably my only concern for my personal bet is there's quite a few sort of stroke players who like to hit the ball along the deck. One of those is Hashim Amla. But you're thinking he's not going to have a very good day here. You're going to take his under run line, under 35.5.
I mean, he's looked bloody awful in this competition. I mean, hands up, I've got him completely wrong with the outright bet that we've got on him. I mean, that ain't even got to first base, has it? I mean, that's been, that's been 3 strikes and out already, to use a baseball term. Yeah, it's really surprising how bad he's looked, actually. I mean, even though we made 40 odd against Afghanistan.
How much that head injury affected him, do you think?
Yeah, it could well have done. Probably not now, to be fair, but certainly earlier on in the tournament. And I imagine he'll see some chin music from 1 or 2 of the quicker bowlers here. But, I mean, even against Afghanistan, he scored them 40 odd at a strike rate of 50. I mean, come on now. It was terrible. I mean, if there was such a thing as substitutes in cricket, he'd have been hooked, after 10 overs. That was a perfect chance. What were they chasing? 120 something? Not even that. It's a perfect chance to sort their run rate out, and he's plodding at strike rate of 50. I mean, it's a clear sign that he's out of form. There was no real sort of concern from the South African camp. They were quite happy that he was scoring runs, but some runs, they always say no runs are bad runs, but I couldn't see any positive in that whatsoever. His last 4 innings against New Zealand, 10, 7, 40 and 8. So he ain't exactly got much form to go by against them either. I'm struggling to find anything that's particularly appealing about Hashim Amla here. If New Zealand do bowl first, you would think they're going to get something out of the wicket early doors. And, you look at his scores in this tournament, 13, 6, 6, and that 41 not out against Afghanistan off 80 odd balls. There's nothing inspiring about Hashim Amla, and this runs line is ridiculously high here. I mean, there are certain ones where you shop around at 28.5, which even that's quite high. He's up against Bolton Henry first doors here, isn't he? And if he does manage to get away from either of those two, they'll bring Lockie Ferguson on pretty quick to get him penned back on his stumps. You're looking at what, Amlet about 12, 14 overs to get this. Can't see him lasting that long.
Where is this runs line at?
All my bets are at Bet365, Steve.
365. Hashim Amla under 35.5. Got to be honest, it does look pretty appealing bet. Now, this is the sort of game where every chance the top orders could get blown away by bowlers like Rabada, Bolt, etc. So there's a chance to look down the order for some value top batsmen. And one of them is in South Africa. Chris Morris is available at 28-1 to top score, which does seem a bit high. I do believe he managed it in one match for them already this tournament.
Absolutely. Against India down at Southampton. Similar kind of contest to this in terms of difficulty of the new ball attack. I've just mentioned Amla. Every chance he's going to go cheaply. De Kock's got a couple of 50s, but he ain't looking fantastic, is he? Du Plessis probably actually looking their best player. And he's kind of slowed down a little bit as well. So, if Bolt and Henry and Ferguson and, dare I even say it, Neesham get stuck into this lot, Chris Morris could be coming in pretty early. Already top scored. Genuine batsman, isn't he? He's not a bowler who can bat a bit. He can genuinely bat. I mean, if he's going in for you at 7 in a test match, you'd have no problems with him facing the new ball. He's got a decent technique. He can hit it as well. If we're only looking at 40, 45 to top score here, he's perfectly capable of that, isn't he? You've got two choices here, Steve. 28-1 at Bet365, or you can knock a few points off it and go 25-1 at Boyle Sports, safe in the knowledge that if he gets 50, which he could do if he's got enough time to bat, if he does get 50 and it doesn't top score, you get any cashews back. And
would there be anyone in the the New Zealand mid to lower order that could be a bit of value? Maybe someone like De Grando, maybe at 20-1.
Yeah, possibly someone of that ilk, I would imagine. Trouble is, the people in the middle order, they can't play spin. So if South Africa keep Imran Tahir, you've got to think, one's going to go straight up off of him. Markram may well see a few overs in this match as well. It might be worth someone like Santner. At least the ball's always turning into his pads, isn't it? And being a spinner himself, if he can't read spin, no one else is going to. But I mean, the big fear for doing that is that South Africa do bat first, and they do make a bag of nails, and your man down the order from New Zealand doesn't even get his pads on, let alone get out to the crease.
I think the man I like in this market is actually Ross Taylor. I think he's looked the best of the New Zealand batsmen in this tournament so far. Looking very good, and he can play both all types of bowling, to my knowledge. I would say fairly well. So, but only 4-1, not a big price on a potentially good bowling day. So, right, there's plenty of picks there for you to get tucked into, and let's hope for a good low-scoring game, Edgbaston on Wednesday. So, we're back to preview the rest of the week and the rest of the tournament. Thanks very much for your thoughts, Kev.
Cheers, Steve. Good to have you back. All the best, mate.